In this video, we're looking at the solutions to exercise 1.5, imaginary numbers. 1a. So notice here in the denominator, we have a negative. So we can split it into two parts, minus 3 over minus 12 and minus 4i over minus 12. Both the terms in the numerator are divided by minus 12. So the first step here will be to split it. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. We will get 1 over 4 plus 1 over 3i. So on your calculator, 3 over 12, it'll simplify it. On your calculator, 4 over 12, it'll simplify it. Notice that a negative times a negative is a positive. So we divided the top by 3 and the bottom by 3, and on the right hand side, we divided by 4 and divided by 4. But the calculator will give you the answer to simplify the fraction. B. Notice B is 5 over I, not 5 over 1. So multiplying the I in the denominator by the conjugate, we will get plus I becomes minus I. And then we have the I over 5 left. So let's multiply 5 times minus I and I times minus I. We will get 5i over I squared. Both will be negative in the numerator, negative in the denominator. The negatives will cancel each other. So now we need to substitute for I squared. I squared, we will get minus 1 where we see I squared. And here we have 1 over 5i on the side, which is the same as I over 5. So 5i divided by a negative 1 will give us a negative 5i. And so we'll have negative 5i over 1 minus I over 5. So now we're going to need to find the lowest common denominator. So by multiplying the first term by 5 over 5, we'll get negative 25i over 5. Subtracting the I over 5, so minus 25i minus I will give me minus 26i all over 5. Now we need to put in the real number, which will be 0. So the answer will be 0 minus 26i over 5. C's example, we are dividing by I. So we have to use the conjugates, which will be a negative I. Multiplying the numerator, it'll be 2 times minus I minus 3i times minus I. So 2 times minus I will give us minus 2i. Minus 3i times minus I will give us positive 3i squared. I times minus I will give us minus I squared. Split it would be the next step. Okay, so the next step would be to substitute minus 1 where we see I squared. Then simplify. 3 times minus 1 will give us minus 3, and minus 1 will give us plus 1 in the denominator. So we'll get minus 2i minus 3 over positive 1. So our final answer will be minus 3 minus 2i. This question, we have minus 3i in the denominator. The conjugate will be plus 3i. So we will multiply numerator and denominator by 3i. Multiplying in the numerator, we will get minus 9i. So minus 3 times 3i is minus 9i. Minus I times 3i will give us negative 3i squared. Denominator, 3 times 3 is 9. I times I is I squared with a negative in front. So the first step would be to split it, or we could substitute minus 1 for the I squared. We could split it. Any which way would still work. So splitting it and simplifying, we will now get minus 9i over minus 9, and where we see I squared, we'll put negative 1, and negative times a negative is a positive, so when two negatives sit next to each other, it becomes positive, and 3 over 9 will give us a third. Notice we have I squared over I squared, they will cancel out. So a minus 9 divided by minus 9, it's gone, so we have I over minus 1 plus a third. Simplifying that, we will get a third minus I. For ease example, we can break it down into I squareds. So I to the 8 is I squared to the 4th. I to the 7 is I squared to the 3rd, which will give me 6, plus the 1 will give me 7. I squared to the 3rd will give me 6. I squared to the 4th will give me 8. We are 1 short. So there it is. So 2, wherever we see I squared, we can place minus 1. And notice we have minus 3, where we see I squared, we can place minus 1. Plus 4, I squared. So here we're going to add the I, that same I, and here plus 4, we're going to place I squared there. Where we see I squared, we are going to place minus 1 there. In the denominator, same thing. Wherever is I squared, minus 1. So simplifying, minus 1 to the 4th will give us a positive 1. Minus 3 to the 3rd will give us a negative 1. So that will become negative 1 there, followed by I. Minus 3 to the 3rd will give us negative 1. In the denominator, we'll get 5 times 1, I. Simplifying, in the next step, we'll have 2 plus. So 3 times 1 is 3, so negative 3 times negative 1 will give us a positive 3i. Plus 4 times minus 1 will give us minus 4. In the denominator, 5i. Positive 5i. So the opposite of that will be negative 5i, the conjugate. Multiplying it out, first we can simplify the numerator. Minus 4 plus 2 will give us minus 2. Multiply the conjugate times the first term, we get plus 10i. The conjugate times the second term, we get minus 15i squared. All of that over 25i squared. So 5 times 5 is 25. So 5 times 5 is 25. Positive times a negative is a negative. I times I is I squared. So wherever we see I squared, we will put minus 1. Simplifying it, we will get 15. A negative 15 times a negative 1 is positive 15 plus 10i. And in the denominator, we get 25. Moving on, split it. Moving on, split it. And then simplify the fraction by punching into the calculator. Don't forget the I. 2a. So in this example, the question reads 2a is what's given on top, z1, z2 and z3 is what is given, and the question says z1 plus z2 divided by z3. So the first step is to do the division first. That's the trick. You have to use BODMAS. So you cannot add z1 plus z2. You have to take z1 and add it to z2 divided by z3 because division comes first. So that's your first step. Second step is to substitute. And then we are multiplying by minus I over minus I, the conjugate. Then the next step would be to distribute it to the numerator, the minus I to the minus 3 and to the plus 4i, and then multiply the denominators. That would be the first thing to do. So multiplying that out, we get negative 3 times minus I will give us positive 3i, plus 4i times negative I will give us a negative 4i squared, and I times minus I will give us minus I squared. So in the next step, wherever we see I squared, we will place minus 1. Then we have like terms, we can now simplify. In the denominator, we're going to get a positive 1. So it's practically the numerator. Where we see I squared, we will place minus 1. 5 minus 4 times minus 1 will give us a plus 4 at the end. So this will give us 9. But to write the answer in rectangular form, we'll have to say plus 0i. 3a, we'll have to multiply the denominator by the conjugate. Notice that the conjugate, we only change the part of the I. So it's minus 5i, it became plus 5i. The 3 remains the same. Then it's BODMAS in the denominator. Then it's FOIL method in the denominator. And in the numerator, it's minus I times each term. So in the denominator, 3 times 3 is 9. And then square the last term because it's the difference of squares. Minus 25i squared. In the numerator, we will get that. So 3 times minus I is 3i. 5i times minus I is minus 5i squared. Where we see I squareds, we can substitute minus 1. Then it's a matter of minus 5 times minus 1 is a positive 5. And a minus 25 times minus 1 will give us positive 25. Next will be to add up the 9 plus 25, which will give us 34. Then we'll have to split it. Don't forget the I. (3b), we'll multiply by the conjugate. Then it's FOIL method in the denominator, FOIL method in the numerator. So 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times minus I is minus 3i. Minus 5 times 2 is minus 10i. 5i, negative 5i times negative I is positive 5i squared. In the denominator, it's a matter of squaring the first term, squaring the last term because it's the difference of squares. So we're going to get 4i squared. In the numerator, we have like terms. So minus 3i minus 10i will give us minus 13i. Plus 5 minus 1 where we see I squared. In the denominator, where we see I squared, we substitute minus 1. Simplifying, we will get this. Plus 5 times minus 1 will give us minus 5. In the denominator, we'll get 4 plus 1, which is 5. Then 6 minus 5 is 1. Followed by the minus 13i. Splitted, we're going to get over 5 over 5. That's our final answer. Or we can write it like this, which is preferred. In the next example, we will multiply by the conjugate. Notice it's negative 2, negative 4i. We only change the negative 4i to positive 4i. So it's FOIL method in the numerator, FOIL method in the denominator. So negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Then it's minus 16i squared. Practically, it's the difference of squares. In the numerator, we'll get minus 2. 1 times minus 2 is minus 2. 1 times 4i is plus 4i. Minus 7i times minus 2 is plus 14i. Minus 7i times 4i will give us negative 28i squared. Wherever we see I squared, we will place minus 1. Plus 4i plus 14i is plus 18i in the center. Don't forget, negative 1 for I squared. So simplifying, we will get 20 in the denominator, 4 plus 16. In the numerator, we'll get a plus 28 on the end. And so plus 28 minus 2 is 26 plus 18i. Next step is to split it. And then we can simplify the fraction by using our calculator. We'll get 13 over 10, and here we'll get 9 over 10i. This was D's example. For B, we are squaring a binomial in the denominator. Square the first term, square the last term. 2 times 2 times I, same sign, positive. Or you can write out the brackets twice and FOIL it out if you want. In the numerator, we have 2 minus I. In the denominator, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 4i, plus I squared. Okay, so we'll get 2i plus 2i, which will give us 4i. Wherever we see I squared, we will substitute minus 1. Next step is to simplify. 4 minus 1 will give us 3 in the denominator. Numerator the same. Now we're going to multiply it by the conjugate. Whatever you see in the denominator, notice it's a plus 4i, the conjugate will be minus 4i. Then it's FOIL method in the numerator and the denominator. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times minus 4i minus 8i. 3 times minus I is minus 3i. Minus I times minus 4i will give us a positive 4i squared. In the denominator, it'll be difference of squares, so square the first term, which is 9, square the last term, minus 16i squared. Where we see I squareds, we'll substitute minus 1. So minus 8 minus 3 is minus 11i. Where we see I squared, it's minus 1. Okay, next is to simplify. We'll get 2 minus 11i. So we have 6 minus 4 is 2, and then minus 11i. Then we have 9 plus 16, because minus 16 times minus 1 is plus 16, so we get 25 there. Next step is to split it, and that's our final answer. We can write I to the side if we like, which is more preferred. Next video, we're looking at the modulus.